Hello everyone and welcome to a really awesome game from the London Chess Classic Fide Open. It's Praggnanandhaa versus Jules Moussard, a French grandmaster who last year won the 2018 London Chess Classic Fide Open, so definitely one of the favorites to win the tournament. And it's a game from round 7 so far. Pragu hasn't lost a single game. And I thought of covering it sooner, but we were kind of busy covering the Grandchester final, so we're only covering it now. So without further ado, let's enjoy the game. Pragu with the white pieces opens with e4. We have c5 by Moussard, knight to f3, d6 and bishop to b5 check, the canal attack. We have bishop to d7, bishop captures, knight captures and castles. We have knight g to f6, and now queen to e2, like Carlsen played against Giri in the Tata Steel Blitz edition in India. We have rook to c8 by Moussard, and now c3, preparing d4. We have e6 and now d4. So okay, c captures, we have c captures and d5 now. Now, it's the dream when you're able to execute d5 in the Sicilian, but here black gets into some developing problems, as knight to e4 is definitely playable here, and it is what is being played today for those who play this line. But here black prefers knight to g8. The idea is that, okay, now you've pushed e5, you no longer have control of f5, so here black wants to remaneuver the knight to f5 via e7. So okay, we have knight to c3. Pragu continues development, knight to e7, and now there are games where bishop to g5 and rook to e1 were played, but h4 is a new move by Pragu, so as of move 12 we have a completely new game. Knight to f5, black continues remaneuvering the knight. Now you have to develop the bishop, perhaps castle kingside. Bishop to g5 now attacking the queen, and bishop to e7, hoping to trade bishops, and now queen to d3. Most likely with the idea that if bishop captures, you can capture with the knight, and the queen will still be controlling the d4 pawn. Also, maybe if the knight moves, you do have access to b5, but that's maybe for some later parts of the game. We have g6 by Moussard, and now queen to d2. Now again, you will you still control the d4 square, but now you can also perhaps play something like bishop to h6. We have a6 by black, and now rook 8 to c1. Continuing development, rook to c6. And now comes knight to e2, offering a trade of rooks. g4 here is the critical continuation, where if you move the knight, then you can get something like bishop to h6. It's a very strong idea, and if black castles, then you can bust open with h5. So here we would see bishop captures, h captures, and now finally after the knight moves, you get king to g2, with the idea that you want to play rook h1, rook to h6, and then bring the other rook over to h1 and have a lot of pressure along the h file. But Pragu chooses a different continuation. He goes knight to e2, now offers a rook trade, and now knight to b8. Black wants to be able to recapture with the knight, so to have even more pressure on the d4 pawn. And here Pragu sacrifices a pawn with b4. He wants to play a4 and b5. So knight captures on h4, black grabs the pawn, bishop captures with bishop captures, and now just a4, continuing to develop pawns on the queen side. We have bishop back to e7, so it's not a target on h4. You don't want to have queen to h6 with an attack on the bishop here. So b5, and now say what you will. Black is up a pawn, but his king is still in the center of the board. We have a captures, the rook is under attack, rook captures on c1, and the rook captures on c1. And here black really has to make a difficult decision. How will he continue this game? And the critical continuation is, will he castle or not? Point is, if he castles, he's probably afraid of queen to c2 and the infiltration on the queen side here. The b7 pawn is weak, but point is, you will be able to wiggle out after queen to e8. You attack the pawn. Queen to c7 now, saying, okay, you grab the pawn, I'll grab the bishop, and now you play bishop to a3. You attack the rook, so white has no time to grab the pawn. Rook b1 now, defending the b5 pawn, and now queen to d7, offering a trade, while also defending the b7 pawn. Now you go back, queen a5, bishop goes back to e7, and here Black was able to safely castle and also save the b7 pawn. So this was the critical line for black. However, black decides to go for king to d7. It's an unusual move, but basically you want to develop the black queen somewhere, bring the rook over to d8, and then castle artificially with king to e8. So here, so if you continue with something like queen to c2, it's not a problem because you can always go queen to a5 and now bring the rook to d8 and hide the king away. So after king to d7, we have queen to f4 now by Praggo, going after the weak f7 pawn on the king side. Rook to f8 defending, and now knight to c3. The knight now defends the pawn here, also prepares to go knight a4 to c5. On c5 the knight will be an excellent piece. If black wants to get rid of it, he will have to give up the bishop, and then he will even improve white's pawn structure on the queen side. But also there are some very interesting tricks with knight captures on d5. For example, if black were to prevent knight a4 by going queen to a5, now you just sacrifice the knight here. Pawn captures, and now you go queen g4 check, and now the queen and rook nicely connect on c8. So here you move the king, queen checks, and now you don't really have any good moves here. If you block with the bishop, you just pick up the knight. If you block with the queen to save the knight, you just pick up on b7, and now rook to c8 just wins the game. Black will lose the queen. So there's no way around this. So here black has to wait and see what white will do. So h5, and now Praggo goes for knight to a4. So okay, there's no danger of knight captures on d5 anymore, so black goes queen to a5, but now Praggo just goes knight to c5 with check. We have bishop captures, and okay, now you cannot recapture with the pawn since you lose the b5 pawn, but you have rook captures on c5. And here we have b6, pushing this rook away. And here, again, Praggo has to decide. It's okay just to move back the rook, because black will have some serious problems if he goes for the pawn. If he goes for the pawn, then you get knight to g5 with some very nice threats of just knight captures on e6. For example, if black plays whatever, you will capture on e6, and now you cannot capture here because you lose the rook. And if you capture with the king, it's just check, king d7, check, king moves wherever, you just capture with the rook. And now there are a lot of ways you can win this game. White will be completely winning here. So after b6, Praggo doesn't go for rook to c1. First he goes queen to h6, says, okay, you capture this rook, I'll capture this rook, and then I'll capture the f7 pawn and win the game this way. We have rook to e8, black says no thank you, and now only now Praggo goes back with rook to c1. We have queen captures on b5. Without capturing this pawn, black can't really hope to achieve anything, so black's only chance is to get rid of this pawn and then try to consolidate. Praggo goes queen to g7, now puts pressure on the f7 pawn, and now it's difficult to, well, it's impossible to guard the pawn, because if rook to e7, just queen to f8, you threaten checkmate with queen to c8, and now if you repeat rook to e8, just queen to d6 is mate. So there are a lot of ways for black to go wrong here. On the other hand, if king to e7 you defend it, then you just go knight to h4, and now knight captures on g6 is coming, rook to c7, you can also infiltrate with that. Again, completely winning for white. So after queen g7, black decides for knight to c6, gives up the f7 pawn with check, so queen captures on f7, rook to e7, and now queen to f8. Again, putting a lot of strain on black's position. If you move the knight, queen to c8 check will again be mate. So here we have queen to a4 by black, putting pressure on the d4 pawn, although, like I said, it cannot be played. Once you capture with the knight, queen to c8 is just mate. So here we have knight to h4 by white, going after the g6 pawn now, and now queen a3, attacking the rook here, but also putting the queen on the same diagonal as the white queen. For the moment, you cannot use this, since there's no way for like deliver check with the rook and then pick up the queen. But still, you should always be careful. So here we have rook to b1, attacking the b6 pawn, king to c7, and now comes knight captures on g6. Here, it seems like Praggo blundered a piece, because black played queen to d3, now attacking the knight and the rook on b1, but Praggo has it all figured out. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the best way how to get out of this messy situation, while I give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding the best way to get out of this mess. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's rook to c1. Point is, now if the knight is captured, you just capture the rook with check, since the knight is pinned. I'm sure you all found that, so congratulations. So black, after rook to c1, decided for rook to d7, just got the rook out of the way. But now, once again, there is one of the easiest way to end this game. So once again, feel free to pause the video and now try to find the best move for white that just wins on the spot. Well, I'll give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on helping Prague win the London Chess Classic Fide Open. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's knight to e7. Like we said, the rook cannot capture because just queen captures, the knight is pinned, you will not be able to recapture, and there is no move. There is no defense against rook captures on c6, it just wins the knight and then it's game over, black is just getting mated. So it was on move 38 that Jules Moussard resigned the game. And Prague not only won this game, but he also won the tournament without losing a single game. I do have the standings here. Well, part of the standings, but just so you can get a glimpse of Prague's results, here you have it. Prague won, well, shared first, but due to better tiebreaks, he took first place with 7.5 out of 9. Same as Jules Moussard. Jules Moussard won it in 2018 with 7.5 out of 9. And here you can see he won 4th place with 7 out of 9. So this was definitely an important game for both of them. But yeah, out of 166 players, Prague won the tournament, shared purse with Anton Smirnov, but again, an incredible result without losing a single game. So not only did Prague win the tournament, but he also crossed 2600 in live ratings, which if he doesn't lose any games until January in classical time format, he will be out as a 2600 grandmaster, which is incredible as he is still only 14 years old. Well, barely 14, he turned 14 in August. So incredible stuff, and well, we can only imagine what Prague will achieve in 2020. In the beginning of the year, he won the extremely strong Xtracon Open in Denmark. Then he won the World Youth Championship. Now he crossed 2600, and now he won for the just to wrap up the year nicely, the London Chess Classic Fide Open. So incredible stuff from young Prague, and like I said, we can only wait and see what he will achieve in 2020. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. A lot of you were requesting this, so sorry you had to wait for so long. I would like to thank Leonid Prokupets, Armin Fabian, Donald Mathewson, Jeff Jolly, and Kenneth McKay of Scotland for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Checking up on your wonderful suggestions. I don't know if we'll be covering any more games from the Grandmaster. I will have to check, and after all is said and done, we will start with our big new saga, which is of course the Paul Morphy saga, as the majority of you have voted for that saga. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.